Hello everyone, my name is Emily, and today we're going to talk about art improvement and how much you can really improve in just a few years. And we're also going to be talking about how I am not the biggest fan of the draw every day rule. I might be ruffling some feathers with this one. Let's go back 2 years ago to November 2018 when I painted this piece. A couple noticeable mistakes right off the bat are going to be the anatomy. The general composition is a bit awkward, the severity of some of the darker parts of the painting, as well as the overall line weight. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to correct some of these mistakes in this follow-up piece. We're going to go ahead and open up Procreate to do the sketch, and we're going to use this beautiful model from Paradox as reference. I'm going to start out by very loosely mapping out and measuring the distance between some of the features on her face, and then I'm going to transfer the sketch to the side so I can start drawing her features on my own while continuing to reference the original image. You can do this exact same thing traditionally by either using a ruler or overlaying some tracing paper over the original image to mark the distance between certain features. Just make sure that you're only making general rough markings and not getting carried away and actually tracing the image. Remember, the bulk of the drawing should be freehand and you should only be referencing the image, not tracing it. Creating a separate, moderately detailed sketch like this actually saves me a lot of time on my final piece in the long run. And if I was making a sketch like this traditionally, the sketch would contain all of the incorrect lines or the smudges or the eraser marks, and not my final piece. Now, I like to use a digital painting program like Procreate to do my initial sketch. It's not the end of the world if you have to do that sketch traditionally, but if you do have access to a digital painting program, I would suggest using that for the final draft sketch, like the one you're going to use to trace onto your final piece of paper, because it's a lot easier to just hit Ctrl-Z or the undo button than it is to manually erase a mistake. But I want to be clear, I think it's very important to continue to use pencil and paper wherever applicable, especially at the very beginning stages of brainstorming and trying to plan out the piece. I'm just saying that if you are able to do this, it's a lot easier to draw your final draft sketch on a digital painting program so that corrections can easily be made before it's ready to be transferred onto your final sheet of paper. In my original piece, I just went ahead and did all my sketching on the final piece of paper, and because of that, you can see all the smudges and eraser marks that I had made, and it just makes the final product look a little messy and incohesive. And that suggestion is more for large, very thought out paintings. If you just want to do a quick painting for practice or a quick painting in your sketchbook, then obviously you don't have to take all these extra steps. Speaking of sketchbooks, I want to talk about the draw every day advice that every artist has probably been given at some point in their lifetime. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the draw every day advice is basically the idea that in order to improve in art, you must find a way to draw every day. And that's actually a piece of advice that I used to stand by. And if you're able to do it, then by all means, that's awesome. But as I got older and started understanding a little bit more about how most people's day-to-day lives are, I started to realize that that piece of advice is just not realistic for most people. There's a big difference between drawing every day and drawing with intention every day. And it's generally understood that the draw every day advice is asking you to draw with intention every day. But drawing with intention, meaning practicing anatomy or composition or color theory, requires not only time, but a significant amount of focus. And I would argue that most people don't have that kind of extra time to consistently dedicate to working on their art. This doesn't mean working on your art as much as possible can't be an achievable goal, but to suggest that you're lazy or unmotivated if you're not drawing with intention every single day is incredibly damaging. Workaholism is worshipped in today's modern hustle culture, especially in the art world, and I think it's high time we start to reject the notion that if we don't eat, breathe, and shit our art, then we must be lazy, unmotivated, and unimportant. I'm gonna be real with you guys. The improvement that you see here is not because I decided 2 years ago that I was going to sit down and draw with intention every day. The improvement that that you're seeing here is because I decided to apply some different techniques. I decided to watch with intention. I'll get to that later. And most of all, I improved because I finally let go of trying to be perfect. I found an artistic niche that I was comfortable in, that I felt matched my skill level, and that I felt was something that I could make on a consistent basis and feel good about. And obviously this will change as I get older, as I improve in art, but I just stopped trying to force myself where I didn't fit. I feel like back when I was obsessed with trying to perfect human anatomy, the more rigid and inflexible my figures became. When I took a step back, took a breath, put the pencil down, and decided to watch with intention for a little bit, it changed everything for me. And what do I mean by watch with intention? I mean purely studying with your eyes. Like before you do any pencil to paper work, you have to watch your subject first. That sounds obvious, like duh, you're using a reference, but no, hear me out. You need to use your brain to break down the layers of your subject. If you're watching a specific person or animal, think about how their clothes or fur is reacting to the environment. Think about how their skin is stretching underneath the fur or clothes. Think about the muscle structure, the skeletal structure. Break it down in your brain first. I know we're used to seeing people watch their subject and then quickly jot down some gestural drawings in their sketchbook, but I would recommend using your eyes and brain to break down your subject before you even touch your pencil and paper. I am all for multitasking, and in fact, that is how I live most of my life. But I realize in some circumstances, when you are multitasking, your brain really isn't giving full attention to one thing or the other. It's kind of bouncing between the two. And in a lot of instances, that's a great way to improve productivity, but in this case, we're looking to improve longevity. We want a long-term understanding of how anatomy works. We want a long-term understanding of how good composition works, the rule of thirds. We want a good understanding of color theory. And the best way to do that is to dedicate 100% of your attention to your subject, or to at least start with that, especially if you're feeling burnt out or if you're feeling like you just can't draw anything right. Take a step back from the pencil and paper and really start to watch with intention. This could be in real life. This could be television. Yes, I am telling you to study television. Study the color palettes that different TV shows and movies use to convey a certain emotion, or camera angles. Watch what they have the actors do, what they have the actors touch, what they have the actors wear. These are all things that can translate directly back into your artwork. And I realize it sounds like I'm saying stop doing work, go watch TV. I'm just saying go out there, study media, study people, study photography, study other artwork. Use your eyes, use your brain to process this information, because when it's time to return to the drawing board, quite literally, you will have that arsenal of information already downloaded into your brain to reference. And this doesn't mean I want you to stop doing gestural sketches from real life, or that I want you to stop using reference photos. Those things are super important and necessary when it comes to the improvement and the evolution of your artwork. You need to continue to do those things whenever possible. Watching with intention is just a technique that I employed when I didn't have the time to sit down and actually draw with intention. It doesn't mean I don't still make time to practice and to draw with intention. It just means that the majority of my week is dedicated to something other than that. A lot of my work week involves making a full-on finished piece to put in a video. And although yes, making those finished pieces is also going to help me improve, it's not exactly the same as full-on sitting down to practice the fundamentals of art. And when I'm not working, I have 2 kids under the age of 5 to take care of, so I absolutely had to find another way to improve. And you try sitting down and fully focusing on practicing your anatomy when you've got a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old climbing up your arms and your back and wanting to draw in your sketchbook. It's not easy. And I draw with my kids every single day. It's an amazing bonding experience. It brings us closer together, and I'd much rather carve out that hour to bond with them than I would to shut them out and strictly focus on practicing my art. Art is born out of experience and connection, and you can't deprive yourself of that because some old white guy told you that you need to practice every day so that your art can better assimilate to the conventions of the Eurocentric westernized art world. That old white guy can suck a fat But I want to improve. I want to see my art evolve, but I have other priorities. In my case, it's my children. In some people's cases, they need to work 2-3 jobs just to survive. Should that mean we look down upon those people because they chose to shower or eat or, God forbid, spend time with their family during their very limited free time instead of choosing to practice their art? Of course not. And in that same vein, for the people who do have the extra time to work on their art, we shouldn't make them feel bad about that either. Like, oh, you're so lucky to have free time. It's like, fuck. Can we all not just fuck off? I'm sorry I went on a little tangent rant thingy there, but I'm just so sick and tired of the workaholic hustle culture. Like, if you're not dying for your art, then like, have you ever really lived? It's like, yes, it's called spending time with my fucking kids. I don't know. I just feel like when a rule like the draw everyday rule or like this extreme importance put on hustle culture and workaholism, when stuff like that enters the zeitgeist, it is just so toxic on humanity as a whole. And say what you will about Gen Z, but I find their rejection of that culture very admirable. And I think that bodes well for their future mental health as adults. And that's what I've been trying to preach here on my channel. However you find a way to make art, as long as you're making it and it's making you happy and you're not hurting anyone else, then you don't need to change to fit someone else's idea of what a real artist should be doing. Because what is popular will come and go. Your lifestyle will inevitably change, and you'll need to find new ways to do the things that you love. And that's okay. Because whether you realize it or not, you're improving. Every smile, every frown, every trip, every place, every dish, every fruit, every building, every color, every body, every little appreciation, no matter how small. You're observing, you're experiencing, and you're making art. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to stay out of trouble. See you guys later.